Hello people and welcome back to Sampling Affair. Today I'm going to show you a workflow enhancement trick for the MPC 2000 Classic and also for the other older MPCs like the MPC 60 or the MPC 3000. So when it comes to sampling and chopping up samples on these old MPCs, the workflow is a little bit slow compared to today's newer MPCs like the MPC Live or MPC 1. But I figured out a way how you can chop up samples easily and making this a little bit faster. What you do is you're going to trim mode, and I have already loaded up a sample, which is this drum break. And what we're going to do is we're going to chop this sample up into 16 individual pieces which have around the same length. So we're going to the zone edit, and what we're going to do first is adjusting for the first zone the endpoint so that we have our first sample. So the first sample is a kick drum. And what we're going to do is we're going to press edit, use the zone to new sample function. We're giving it a new name, so it's the first sample, then press do it, and we have now finally extracted the first sample as a new sample from the drum break. But what we're going to do now is press edit again, but this time we're going to delete the selected zone. So everything that we have selected right now is deleted, but the rest of the sample is brought back into place from the first zone. So everything moved, and when we are going to hear what the zone has, it's the sound that comes after. And this already chopped up, just in place. So sometimes what can happen is like this, because we are using here a drum break probably played by a real drummer. Things might be a little bit offbeat in the drum loop, but there's no problem. What we are going to do now is only adjust the endpoint so that it just fits. Then press edit again, use zone to sample. This is our second sample. Press do it. We have extracted it, but also delete it afterwards. So then we have the next sample, which is the snare drum, and you can hear right now it just perfectly fit in the zone. So we're just going to use zone to new sample. This is our third sample, and then delete it again. So then comes the next sample, which is the hi-hat and a kick drum. Going to press edit again, zone to new sample. This is the fourth one. Do it, edit, and delete it. Next one is just a hi-hat. As you see, the workflow is pretty straightforward. Like, all you need to do is just switch between extracting and deleting the selected zone. But sometimes, like you see here, we have to adjust but only the endpoint, which makes it pretty much easier than always adjusting end and start point, which you have to normally do on these older MPCs like the MPC 2000 Classic. If the sample is well quantized that you're using, you could like just go on and extract and delete without hearing the sample. But if you want to be sure, you can always check the sample and just adjust the endpoint of the zone, which makes it faster. So you see, like in the beginning, we have a little bit of an offset, like the sample is not at the starting point from the next drum, which is okay because this workflow is all about being fast. So it's better to only adjust the endpoint if you want to be sure, but it doesn't need to be that 100% correct, because it's all about the workflow enhancement. It needs to be faster, so you can always come back to those individual samples and cut it up later and adjust the start and end points so that it fit a little bit better. And as you see, the original sample that we're using, so the drum break, is getting shorter and shorter. This is because we are deleting those zones. So that is something that you have to keep in mind, because when you're working on the original sample, you're going to lose it because you chop up everything and delete those samples. But that's why I recommend you to always work on a copy, so keep the original sample on your hard drives. And the last one is just a hi-hat. And the last one, we don't really even need to cut it. So with all these samples, I can go into program mode and lay them down. Starting with our first sample. Then our second. Then the third. Then the fourth. Then the fifth. 15, 16. As you hear, I can loop those the way that I want because I have chopped it up in 16 individual pieces. And this a little bit faster than if I had to adjust all those zones manually with a start and end point. So this is something which also works for the MPC 60 and the MPC 3000. I have looked it up in the manuals, and they have also this zone edit function with the extracting function and the deleting function. So this works the same, but you on the 3000 and 60 you don't have this user interface showing you the waveform of the sample, which makes it maybe a little bit harder. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and see you next time.